Okay, Dunkin, this is the beginning.
Yeah.
Cheers. No beer today, mainly because I forgot to prepare it, but we got water today.
Yeah.
So,
So, this
yeah.
is the clean day. This is the episode where we prove we're not addicted.
I mean, we're talking about baptism today as well, so
I'm fine. I can stop anytime.
Yeah. Yay, you cued in on it. Yeah. So today's episode is baptism. So we're gonna talk about baptism. We're gonna talk about water. So we're gonna specifically talk about water baptism. I kind of wanted to do this video mainly because, one, I hear whack stories and whack theology about baptism everywhere anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's also like one of those things Christians kind of don't really talk about. We just kind of assume, oh, you believe we should be baptized. You believe we should be baptized. They just don't mention, how old, when, where, how to do it, immersion or sprinkling. They know they probably don't agree. So they'll just be like, oh, we all got baptized. Just don't push.
In my experience, it is emphasized on its importance, but it is not emphasized as much about the means.
Oh, yeah, the house and the... Yeah.
So they'll just give like one or two Bible verses and be like, see,
Right.
you got to do it.
Yeah. So usually when the church wants to do baptismal service the next Sunday, they're like, well, there's this one passage somewhere that says you should be baptized. So come next week, we'll baptize you if you haven't. And that's kind of it. So anyway, that's just the, general context. So I'm going to throw it to you guys, similar to how we did all the other episode. Tell me, how did your churches particularly teach baptism? Like how did they baptize you? How did they taught baptism should look like? What does it confer? How is it done? And all those things. How about, I'm going to save you because you're pretty excited, right? So I'm going to go with Sinkang first. How did they teach you?
Right.
Right.
Okay, so during the time I was like having like baptism lessons and stuff, the one thing that I managed to remember is that it symbolizes like a turning life point. Like
Okay.
it's just a symbolism, like not really like your life changes on the spot, but
Right.
it symbolizes a new state of life.
A new stage of life. Okay. This is your turning point. This is your
Yeah,
hinge.
something like that.
Okay.
The hinge, right, the hinge, yeah. And my baptism is sprinkling, yeah.
Okay.
Like for both like the infant baptism and also one that we call affirmative confession. Yeah,
Confirmation.
forgive my like poor translation from Chinese, but like kind of like confirmation baptism.
Yeah. In English, we also call them confirmation.
I
But
see.
yeah, but here's the thing. You said you were baptized when you were a child. How old generally, if you can remember, or you don't know?
Shit, I had a cert. I have to look for that.
Okay, that's fine. But
Can you
then,
give like a rough ballpark?
A few months, I guess.
yeah, that's fine. But then during your confirmation, there was water baptism as well. You got sprinkled by water again.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So usually for traditional churches like mine, confirmation doesn't include water baptism.
it's just like pray.
No, we usually it follows with like a confession. We believe in a lot of the doctrines we cover, Trinity, so on and so forth.
Oh shit! I kind of sorry guys. I think I kind of screwed up my own baptism. Apparently, I now remember that the pastor just like lay his hands on my head.
Right.
Just
Yeah,
pray,
that makes more sense.
And,
So
like
now that
and with like Mandela effect, he just remembers water.
he
coming.
has Mandela effect.
I don't know why, bro.
He was from a different timeline. He was from a slightly different.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, that's all right. But okay. So actually, that's pretty in line, whatnot. Now, you tell me, what do you want to
Double
tell
confirm first. One time, you got wet one time.
I go with one.
me? You got wet. He got wet one time.
The
Alright,
other was a
noted,
Mandela.
Okay. So, I want to take a very neutral approach. I consider myself a very basic Christian. I don't like to choose sides because my little brain can't really handle it.
Right.
So I consider myself, once again, a basic Christian. Immersion or sprinkling, I believe in the validity of both.
Okay.
Like truly, as so long as there's a public declaration and,
Well, yeah.
so long
okay.
as the symbolism is is there as long
Right.
as there's a physical expression of faith. Okay.
All right.
So now I'm gonna go and dive into my church's stance
Right.
on baptism.
Yeah.
And
So your church, just to remind the audience,
it's FGT, Full
it's
Gospel
FGT.
Tabernacle.
Uh-huh.
I did some reading in the V classes that I had to attend. It's basically this. It's a class. It's a 1-day class when they will talk about membership, about
Right.
being a Christian. Because generally when a new person gets saved by FGT, you have to be thought about what expectations are like. So it's generally a bit more basic. You know?
You're a Christian now.
Yeah.
What is up?
And then- yeah,
and
and then-
baptism is always there.
Yes, baptism is there, and FGT's stance is in immersion,
Right.
and here is the reason why. I'm pretty sure I don't need to dive into why it's important to get
Okay,
baptized, right?
right.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
so
that's
let's just not. Okay, so why immersion? Point number one, and I did my homework as best I could.
Right. So this is accurate. This is like their confession.
This is yes.
Right. Okay.
Number one, because Jesus was baptized that way. Try not to get triggered
Yeah. Okay. This is a try not to get trigger challenge
for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, second point. Okay. And FGT subscribes to mainly uses NKJV. Okay, so
Right.
and they highlighted Matthew 3:16. Jesus came when he had been baptized, Jesus came up immediately from the water. Matthew 3:16. Okay,
Dude. Uh-huh.
and every baptism. Okay, no, I'm just gonna readjust really quickly. Forgive me.
That's fine.
All right. Every baptism in the Bible was by immersion.
Okay. That's all right. That's all right.
Your face.
Hey, no. No, that's actually perfect. I am asking for a definitive, your run-of-the-mill baptismal theology.
No, FGT is very firm. Immersion only.
Yeah, and that's a very run-of-the-mill the doctrine that's prevalent among evangelical.
Yeah. So FGT, right? Generally, in most things, it is. Most churches, most denominations have their own practices, except you're wrong. No. It's just this one. It's just this one, as far as I'm aware. Okay.
Right.
But yeah, FGT believes firmly in immersion.
Right.
For there's point 3 as well. The word baptize means to dip under water.
Right. Baptizo always means to fully immerse. That's the argument, right?
Baptizo, yeah, that's one of it. And yeah. Hey, yeah, you nailed it actually. That's really what
That's
different
literally
baptizo.
It's fine. No worry
Or
about
to
it.
submerge or to plunge. By definition, it means to put into or under the water or other penetrable substance. So
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Right.
whatever. They probably updated it. And as to entirely immerse or submerge. Okay, and the fourth and last point is it best symbolizes a burial and resurrection. Death to life.
Yep.
The old so therefore we and FGT quotes Romans 6:4.
Yep.
Yeah. Therefore we were buried with him
In
through
baptism.
baptism
Right.
in death. Yeah, so buried with him.
And then those who are buried with him are raised to newness of life with
Yeah,
him. Yep.
that's the argument. And, yep, yeah, you got it.
I it's
It's almost like you heard it before.
yeah.
You're ready for this one.
In other words,
Yeah.
it's all the same argument.
If I get kicked out of FGT, I'm homeless. So
Right.
go easy, alright?
So okay. So let's put the disclaimer right here. We're getting the thing from FGT not because we hate. But
Yeah.
There's like a lot of people we know from FGT.
Yeah.
You're from FGT.
Love you. Love
Uncle
you.
Waihin.
Yeah.
I love you. Please don't hate me.
Yeah.
But yeah. The reason we want a definition is
Yeah.
because so we're not punching thin air, right?
Yeah.
We're not like arguing or disagreeing with
Yeah, you
nobody.
beg to differ. This is disagreement.
Right.
Love
and,
you.
Yeah, and the point is
He
we
thinks you're
want
wrong.
but the point is we want an accurate like what do other people actually believe.
But yeah.
Yeah.
This one's legit. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And yeah.
And the fact that I predicted, as in like I've heard it before, it's because this is kind of the only way to argue for your position, right? You kind of always have a line of thinking that kind of follows through regardless.
So yeah, okay. Let's go back to this one. The
Sure.
case. So the biggest reason is death to life, a physical expression of faith.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's also, and then they tie in. That's why when should you be baptized? As soon as you
Instant, yeah.
believe. Yeah.
Mhm,
When you
instantly.
believe, you qualify.
Okay.
So okay, now I want to again give you a very recent story about the baptism of my girlfriend.
Okay. There's a personal testimony,
Personal.
right?
It's not, I mean, it's not personal to me. It's
Yeah.
just, I'm just
Firsthand,
trying.
firsthand.
I'm just trying to narrate it.
Sure. Yeah. You
Alright?
go ahead.
So, my girlfriend comes from a Methodist background,
Right.
and she was baptized at a young age, at about 8 years old. So she remembers her own baptism.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
So
it
not
was-
an
yeah.
infant,
Not
but
an
like
infant.
really young.
Young, yeah,
Okay.
young.
Because she didn't grow up a Christian, right?
She did not. Okay,
Her house?
her household was Christian, but
I
they
see.
were a little bit. Well, they didn't really attend church.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although like
Nice.
when I visited the parents, to meet the parents, like the house has like Bible verses
Interesting.
hooked on walls, but
You're-
like they weren't attending church.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, which is like, huh?
That's fine. That's fine.
Anyway,
What does it give me like Tony Stark vibes?
Tony Stark. Wow.
Maybe okay, you know what? They're all very smart people. Yeah. Okay. I'll
Okay.
give you. I'll pat you on the back. And anyways, irrelevant.
Yeah.
And anyways, yeah. So she was baptized when she was young, and then she recently took her faith very seriously.
Right.
Now as she's older,
Mhm.
and she attended this class. So I told her to inform the pastors that she was actually baptized before, and it's by sprinkling. Just spare no details. Tell them.
Right.
And the verdict among the pastors, which I expected to be like, oh, you're baptized before. Okay, you're baptized before.
Okay. Yeah. That's fine.
But the verdict was, oh, that one doesn't count. So
That's wild.
baptized again
But doesn't count because of?
because of sprinkling.
No way. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's-
So
that's
her
standing on
faith is the same.
Yeah.
It was under the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Doesn't matter. Doesn't count because.
Confession, I don't know, but because she was very young, FGT also has also doesn't actually believe in infant
Oh,
baptism.
Yeah.
And
So your faith wasn't as strong back then.
The main reason was that Gugu Gaga does not, it's not a true
That's
confession.
not valid. That's
Yeah.
not valid. That doesn't count. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So yeah, then they're not capable of making their own decisions, or that's what FGT would argue, lah.
Right.
And that's their stance, and it makes sense. And I myself was baptized at the age of 14, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
But
And-
your family was Christian.
Yes.
The whole. Okay.
and so I don't understand, and yeah, I'm just
Yeah. That's
giving
fine.
what I know.
Uh-huh.
Alright. Yeah. So very very recently she was baptized again. She was immersed. So she was
Dunk.
actually baptized for a second time, and yeah,
The dunking.
dunking.
Yeah.
She was sprinkled and dunked.
Huh?
So yeah,
Oh,
sprinkled first, and then like no, that doesn't count. Dunked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess double blessing. I guess.
There. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But okay, that's pretty hilarious. And
Yeah.
and again, the face, my expression is not like shock. It literally is just being triggered because I've heard it like 1,000 times and it still triggers me to this day. But yeah, so a lot of assumption is kind of made. I remember I went to HTBB a couple weeks ago. I wanted to meet our good friend Calvin, and they are gonna have baptismal service the next Sunday, and I think one of the minister or officer, or I don't know if he had any particular title, he just walked up and said, well, next week is gonna be our baptismal service, and we all know, this is what he said, we all know that baptism is the outward sign of an inward faith. That's always what is said. Zero Bible quotation.
I have a question for Calvin. Was it Abel Cha who said it?
Was it?
No, nothing. If it is, then because he's actually from FGT as well.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
No, but here's the thing. That's actually not a new saying.
It's not a new
that's
saying. Yeah, it's
that's
very-
very generic.
It's a charismatic thing actually.
And it could be, or it's just like one of
Oh.
those Baptist.
I'm aware that it's a charismatic thing. I don't know if it's a Baptist or I don't know if it's others. Yeah, I don't know if it's shared among others.
I feel like it originated in like more independent Baptist circles.
Then, yeah.
But it is
must,
a
must
more
have just adopted it then.
yeah,
Alright.
it's a more new evangelical type thing where
Okay,
it's like
okay.
yeah, again, no Bible verse, no nothing. It's just no one like tell me where in the Bible does anyone say it's it's an outward sign of an inward faith. No one will say it.
I mean,
They will-
okay. FGT references Acts 8:38 and 39.
Which is
when where is it?
You can read it for the audience. 38.
The Acts. One moment. Let me Google
Go
that
ahead.
really quickly.
We're gonna be flipping.
We're gonna flip,
We're gonna flip real hard. We got a lot of other passages we're gonna flip to.
bro. Have mercy on me. Okay, on me.
Verse 38, you say?
Yeah, verse 38 and 39. Acts 8, verse 38, 39. Yeah, I'm gonna opt to read the full chapter.
Should I read it?
No.
Go ahead.
NKJV. So yeah,
Acts 8, beginning verse 39.
38 and 39. What version are you?
NKJV.
Oh, dang. Okay, go for it.
Yeah,
go
that's
for
right.
it. Okay,
So, beginning verse 38, so he commanded the chariot to stand still, and both Philip and the eunuch went down into the water, and he baptized them. Now then, they came up out of the water. The Spirit of the Lord caught Philip away, so that the eunuch saw him no more, and he went on his way rejoicing.
This one is every baptism is done by immersion, and then after that is 18, Acts 18, when I believe is verse 8. Yeah, Crispus, the synagogue leader, and his entire household believed in the Lord, and many of the Christians who heard Paul believed and were baptized. So
Crispus and his what? Can you repeat?
Crispus and his house and his entire household believed in the Lord, and then believe, baptized. This one is
Yeah, but you said house just now.
and household.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying house. Does house include children?
Oh.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But okay. Well,
So the reference is believed and then baptized.
yeah.
Believed,
Okay.
baptized,
That's which again, I wouldn't disagree with the faith having to be present, but we're gonna have to define that a little bit more as we go. So okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Is there
Cook
anything?
me, I guess.
Is there anything else that we need to establish besides the public run of the mill?
I'm unaware if there's more. I guess if there's more, they can fight you in the comment section. I guess.
Maybe one thing I can mention here is that like the Methodist stance, like in particular like Malaysia, isn't very strict on the means or the modes of baptism.
Right. It
Like,
could be sprinkling. It could be.
It could be dunking. Like, I just found out that one of my brothers in CF, goes dunking, even though he goes to Methodist church.
Oh.
Meanwhile, all my life I thought that it's the sprinkling that the Methodists do.
Right.
Which I found out from the internet that it is true. Like for majority of the Methodists, that we do
I see.
sprinkling,
Okay.
and some few of them do dunk.
Right. So in their confessions and all that, they favor both. They are not gonna reject the modes.
Yeah. They are not rejecting any.
All right. Okay. That's interesting. So right. And usually I think a pattern you'll also notice is the fact that most of the New Testament quotation, most of the quotation for baptism is New Testament.
Yeah.
And then they kind of imply meanings into it. So we're gonna actually talk about the origins, or at least the image that we get from the Old Testament,
Yeah.
not just the New. Speaking of which, I'm just gonna make the argument really simple and really quick because every baptism is always the word, it's always immersion.
Mm-hmm.
The word that's used for all the ones, like the eunuch, the Ethiopian eunuch and Jesus, the word is always either ek or apo in Greek, which is away from or out of. Now, there is a word exactly for coming out, like as in you're submerged in water, you're inside something, and then you come out of something. The preposition for that is actually hupo, and that's never used. So, even from the Greek, I don't think you can immediately say, it's always out inside and then come outside. It's more likely that it's just saying they're walking away from the water. But okay, you can't make definitive arguments just from singular preposition.
Yeah.
But I want to make a cleaner argument, and I'm sure people have done the Greek to death, and I don't think most of our audience are interested in like really deep, hard Greek kind of parsing. So we're just gonna do a cleaner one where I hope even lay people can follow. So we kind of have the New Testament kind of already has an image on what baptism is, right? The fact that Hebrews, we're gonna turn to Hebrews real quick. If you can turn with me there. And I will read, it's behind, Hebrews 9, beginning verse 19. I'll read, if I can find it. For when Moses had spoken every precept to all the people according to the law. He took the blood of calves and goats with the water, scarlet wool, and hyssop, and sprinkled both the book itself and all the people, saying, "This is the blood of the covenant which God has commanded you." Then likewise he sprinkled with blood both the tabernacle and all the vessels of the ministry. And then he goes on a really long argument, but to kind of make it brief and short, all the way down to chapter 10, verse 22, he says, this is his application for all the quotation he brought up: "Let us draw near with a true heart in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water." So, for some reason, Moses quotes this entire thing right from Hebrews 9, as Paul quotes from Hebrews 9:19, all the way until 10:22. He quotes all the ceremonial washing. He talks about the temple furnitures, right? Exodus 24:5-11, Numbers 19:18. I'm not going to read all that, but it's all the quotation of all the furniture being sprinkled. It's not just the people. The furniture also gets sprinkled. A bunch of things get sprinkled. And then the funny one, there's one where it's a bird. So in Leviticus 14:47, Moses is supposed to take two birds. He's supposed to kill one, and then baptizo in the Septuagint, baptizo the other bird with the blood of the other bird. So okay, quick logic question: if I cut Chinkang open and spill all his blood into a bathtub, can I fully submerge you in his blood? Will there be enough blood?
With great effort.
Right. You
Yeah.
have to like minimize, like really
Yeah.
thin and really flat yourself.
I guess a bird wouldn't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And the point is because that's kind of the image you get. It's the bird is being baptized in the other bird's blood. And that's just small jabs to say, they say, every single instance. Well, here's one instance where it's literally physically impossible. So I'm just going to bring up those instances where, like it's literally impossible to be done by immersion, if I
Okay.
can. But again, Hebrews quotes all these instances where Moses sprinkles blood everywhere, and to the people, to the furniture. And then his application is, you should be sprinkled with water so that you're clean. So, immediately, you have an image of cleansing, purifying, all those things that we believe about baptism, and it has nothing to do with immersion. How do you expect to fully immerse the furniture of the temple in an oxen blood?
You need more oxen.
You need 10 oxen, but then we're told he sacrifices one. This is
Only one, yeah.
So one doesn't make sense. He sprinkles it to all the people. That's literally said. There's no argument about that. Right? So and we're just setting up. We're literally just warming up here. We keep hearing words of it's always immersion. It's always immersion. But wait, we're getting a lot of images about sprinkling now, and seems like the author of Hebrews, I believe, is Paul, makes connection to this, to baptism, to sprinkling your hearts clean. So we'll move on real quick, right? To sum up, I'm gonna sum up some. Oops, that's my mouse. I'm gonna sum up some Old Testament passages that alludes to baptism. For example, Numbers 33:8. We're told Israel passes through the Red Sea. And then Paul quotes that part in 1 Corinthians 10:2. He says that's baptism. Israel was being baptized in the sea and in the clouds. We can actually turn to it real quick so that we're not just, saying things. We actually see them. I can read it. 1 Corinthians 10. Moreover, brethren, I don't want you to be unaware that all our fathers who were under the cloud, all passed through the sea, all were baptized.
Yep.
All were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. All ate same spiritual food, and he talks about the other sacraments now. So, again, we get this image. Baptism is Old Testament. It's all the way since Moses. You can't say, baptism is New Testament thing, because Paul literally says the Israels back in their day got baptized by Moses. Okay. Same exact word is used when Joshua crosses the Jordan. He passes through the sea. He passes through the water, the rivers of Jordan, to conquer the land. 2 Kings 2:8, same exact word again. In fact, this is where Elijah gives a double portion to Elisha. No, and he's not getting baptized twice. Actually, guess what happens in 2 Kings 2:8? If you want to turn there, you can read it.
Sure, I'll read it. In ESV, then Elijah took his cloth and rolled it up and struck the water, and the water was parted to the one side and to the other, till the two of them could go over on dry ground.
There you go. Another
The water is
exact same Red Sea image. And we kind of don't go to this passage a lot, but this is the same exact word being used. Like I said, the baptism, the word being used, passing through, always the same. In Moses' day, in Joshua's day, and now in Elijah and Elisha's day.
Yeah.
And then, let me see here. What other quotation do we have? Oh yeah, in 1 Chronicles 1:9, where Judah, the northern part, gets exiled, and so that they have to re-enter. They have to once again be baptized to enter the promised land once more. So okay, we got really cool images. Actually, this is like not a I guess being wet is a thing now in the New Testament. We actually have the image all the way through. Now I'm just gonna throw it back to you guys real quick. If there's any Old Testament image you remember in terms of baptism, or you just don't encounter any, or you just never thought of any. Does anyone remember about the general who had a skin disease?
3 times.
Right, he has to.
Seven. Sorry. 7.
Right, he has to go wash.
Yeah.
Right, and again, people usually would say, "Well, that's fully immersed," but the water is dirty. Like you're not dunking. In that passage, I sadly don't have the citation with me right now. Maybe if you find it on the site, you can bring it up.
Yeah. I recall it's something like dip 7 times.
Yeah, and
That's no, that's general. Is that Nama?
Naaman.
Yeah, Naaman.
Yeah, you can find it if you want on the site. But to kind of make the story short, he was actually complaining about the water. Right. He's being told by the prophet, go dip yourself in this river. And he says, why this one? This one's dingy. Why can't I be baptized in the great Euphrates or something?
I'll quote like
Go ahead.
2 Kings chapter 5 verse 11. But Naaman was angry and went away, saying, "Behold, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call upon the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and cure the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" So he turned and went away in a rage.
Right.
So yeah.
So what's the 2 rivers that he mentioned?
the
Abana
rivers
and,
of Damascus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
rivers-
Abana and
Abana and
Pharpar. Yeah,
Pharpar.
right.
Pharpar, and the one that's being prescribed by the prophet is what? I think it was River Jordan.
Yep, Jordan.
Right? Which, again, funny story. Where was John the Baptist baptizing? Jordan.
Oh.
Okay, we're getting the image, right?
Okay,
We're forming the image. Again, it's dirty. He says, look at, you're telling me to go, I don't know, give me a questionable place, Kuantan, I don't know. Don't get offended. But, like, you're telling me to go wash at a dingy place when I could baptize myself in Harpar and Abana. Because again, if you know the context and whatever during the time, it's not a clean place. It's like dirty, and you have a skin disease. Are you seriously gonna dip in a place that's even more dirty?
Apparently, it's still dirty today.
It's still dirty today, and that's why again.
Oh, nasty
like,
dog.
Imagine putting your entire face, and then someone's gonna get into your ear and
Yeah,
there.
and some. It's
Yeah.
like, oh,
But
all
anyway,
the holes in my
yeah.
face.
But it seems like the image so far, and I'm really stressing it, so far the image has nothing to do with immersing. We get parting, we get crossing, we get dipping, sure. But dipping is not the same as fully immersed. The bird gets dipped in the blood, and a lot of the hyssop gets dipped in the blood and sprinkled. So, so far the image really lacks the typical theology of immerse. That's what we hear. But I'm bringing up some passages that people don't commonly bring up, that Paul and Peter and all the other apostles, they never quote, but Paul and Peter quotes these exact passages and say, these are baptisms. right? Why? One of the questions you do have to ask is, why are these passages missing when we want to talk about baptism? It's one thing to say, well, a lot of these courses are for new believers and they want to get baptized quick. They need to know the why and how immediately. Like, okay, which is fair. I'll grant that. But does it serve a purpose if we truncate the image and then tell them, oh, we sufficiently told them what for? Kind of doesn't it? You kind of have a worthless view of your baptism. And I'd argue that's probably why multiple baptism is not even a problem, because it's like whatever type of thing, right? I did it once, I can do it twice.
I see.
But I don't think, again,
So the image is lacking, and therefore, this
yeah, and again, it's one of those story thing, right? I've been talking a lot about storytelling because
Okay.
because I'm gonna talk about storytelling in our camp. But the way we read the Bible, we want to just know, oh, what's baptism? What's the command? And we kind of don't get the command straight. We get these stories about how Israel passes through the Red Sea. That's called baptism, and that's what we have to go by, these stories. And we kind of have to read them not as like immediate commands. We have to understand them story-wise first. What's the significance here, right? So, okay. We can then start going into the New Testament, right? So someone want to go John 1:25 and read it. Maybe you can read this one, Zach.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, the Methodist stand is we do only accept one baptism,
Right,
but we
yeah.
are not strict on the means. Though.
Yeah. When I gesture your hand this way, I'm not accusing Methodism or anything. I'm just saying, like,
just to
broad.
be clear, just
Right, yeah. That, which is fine. Again, the criticism I'm launching is the broad idea of,
of immersing.
like, well, for now immersing, but like whatever we discover from the text, right? If it goes against it, then that's the only thing I'm going against.
Right,
Regardless of whatever institution or person goes through and whatever, right? That's not their fault if they're taught otherwise or if they're never taught any better. But again, our goal is to set a better vision
Okay.
for what
okay.
baptism actually is. So yeah. Anyway, you wanna-
Like this could be potential foreshadowing, but like it could escalate to like a legitimate debate later.
right.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
if you can get me to debate someone, that'll be like
If I
crazy
can hook
good.
you up, right? Yeah, actually, that'll be pretty good. I'll be the
Alright.
mediator. Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah.
Mediator just to calm you down.
Yeah, it's a friendly debate. There's no need to throw hands. We're just gonna throw water,
I mean, no, you will, and then they will dunk you. Yeah.
and then I'll get waterboarded.
Yeah. Okay. John 1:25. Okay. You know, I'll just read 24 while I'm at it.
Yeah.
Now, the Pharisees who had been sent questioned him. Why then do you baptize if you are not the Messiah, nor Elijah, nor the prophet?
Whoa. Okay. So interesting. What can you infer from this text? So John the Baptist is preaching baptism of repentance, and then what's the first thing they ask? Why don't you just say you're the Christ or you're what's your translation say? Elias,
Elijah.
Elijah, right?
Nor the prophet.
Right. So the thing is, that means the Pharisees in their day already have a theology of baptism. Whoever is baptizing, especially with John the Baptist being in the Jordan River, the imagery is already there. They're asking, well, then you're the one. You're the Christ. Or you're Elijah again. Elijah is prophesied to come by Malachi, right? But of course, John later on says, well, there's going to be one other comes. I can't even touch his sandal. I can't even so much as touch his feet and whatever. But again, the New Testament, the people already have an expectation. And the expectation is actually the fact that the Messiah will be doing this thing. The baptism is going to be something that he'll be doing. So interesting. We will turn to Isaiah 52:15, and maybe I'll read that one. 52, beginning verse 15, it says, maybe I'll read verse 13 too. So beginning verse 13, behold, my servant shall deal prudently. He shall be exalted and extolled and be very high. Just as many were astonished at you, so his visage was marked more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. So shall he sprinkle many nations. Kings shall shut their mouths at him. For what had not been told them to them they shall see, and what had not been heard they shall consider. So that's the prophetic kind of image that we get of the Messiah. He will not immerse, sprinkle many nations. Now, of course, it's many nations, but they start with Jerusalem. So the fact that someone's starting to go around Jerusalem baptizing, you'd be right to ask, hey, is this guy it? Because apparently baptizing, sprinkling is the primary expectation, one of the expectation that the Messiah will do. So that's another image. We also have a similar image. So maybe Chen Kang, you can read this one again. 2 Kings 2, 19 to 22.
All right. 2 Kings 2.
Oh, my poor Bible
All
flipping
right.
skills.
Verse 19. Now the man of the city said to Elisha, behold, the situation of this city is pleasant, as my Lord sees, but the water is bad, and the land is unfruitful. He said, bring me a new bowl, and put salt in it. So they brought it to him. Verse 21. Then he went to the spring of the water, and threw salt in it, and said, thus says the Lord, I have healed this water. From now on, neither death nor miscarriage shall come from it. Verse 22. So the water has been healed to this day, according to the word that Elisha spoke.
I don't know why, but my default is just to like make it epic and just be like,
Yeah,
Behold.
what did your translation say when it says put the salt
then he went out to the spring and threw the salt.
through the salt? Yeah,
Through
okay.
the salt
So some
into it.
translation will say
Yeah.
sprinkle the
Yeah.
salt. But again,
So I
not
was given the image that they kind of dunked it all in.
Yeah, yeah.
The salt. Yeah.
yeah, but which is fine. Again, I'm not too dogmatic on
Oh yeah.
Salt
Thing.
Bay. the original Salt Bay. But it's really cool the fact that the thing being sprinkled is healed. It no longer causes death.
Mm.
Which boom, 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 sprinkled no longer cause death, no longer is dead, and all those things, right? So okay, and so far we are starting to form the image. The Messiah will sprinkle many nations. Elijah sprinkled a particular body of water. The image isn't like one to one, right? This time it's salt that's being sprinkled, but the effect is similar. It's cleansing. It's the inhibition of death, right? No longer the water causes miscarriage and all those. And so the Pharisees go, oh, aren't you Jesus? Aren't you the Christ? Aren't you going to be Elijah coming in the spirit of Elijah? Because you're doing the exact same thing. So John the Baptist must not have been immersing because so far all the images that we get are sprinkling. He will sprinkle, and that's the Pharisees going, oh, something's happening here. This man is doing something. So okay, so that's some of the image we get, and then we get two other example. One I already mentioned, the 1 Corinthians, where Paul says we all were baptized under Moses and whatnot. Now maybe I'll get you to go to 1 Peter 3, 19 to 22.
19.
Yeah, 1 Peter 3,
Oop,
verse 19.
Internet.
That's fine.
Okay. It's okay. Not to say that immersion has no imagery, but I would like to suggest that it's a simpler image.
Right.
You know, because Jesus died and rose.
Yeah.
But
so,
then
and-
if it is taken like so, then shouldn't I be underwater like 3 days?
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
So actually, we'll touch that. We'll touch the Romans 6 passage real quick.
Yeah, yeah.
After this one.
Yeah, the death to life part. Yeah,
Yeah.
deal with it, please. Thank you.
I'll get to that, but
Okay, verse 19. After being made alive, he went and made proclamation to the imprisoned spirits. Verse 20. Until where?
22.
Until 22. Okay. To those who are disobedient long ago, when God waited patiently in the days of Noah, while the ark was being built, in it only a few people, 8 in all, were saved through water. And this water symbolized baptism that now saves you also. Not the removal of dirt from the body, but the pledge of a clear conscience toward God. Infant
Oh,
baptism
there
argument.
you go, there you go.
Okay,
Okay.
I see you. It saves you by the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at God's right hand with angels, authorities, and powers in submission to him.
Interesting.
Right.
So isn't it interesting that once you kind of get the image,
Okay.
it flows
Yeah.
Like I don't even need to tell you anything. You kind of caught it.
Okay.
Right. So just to follow up, just to reread the previous one, which is 1 Corinthians 10. I'm going to read verse 1. Moreover, brethren, I don't want you to be unaware. All our fathers who were under the cloud, all passed through the sea, all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. All ate same spiritual food, and so on and so forth. So, okay. So your passage was talking about Noah. And he says the waters in Noah's day was what? It was baptism. Right? In fact, can we draw out some details there? Maybe we can draw out a couple more details. Let me see if I can find the third letter of Peter. Sorry, the first epistle of Peter. Verse 19. By whom also he went preached to the spirits in prison who formerly were disobedient when once the divine long-suffering waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 souls, his entire family, were saved through the water. Well, not his entire family, sorry, one of his child,
Oopsies.
were saved through water. There is also an antitype which now saves us, baptism, not the removal of filth of the flesh, but the answer of a good conscience toward God through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So again, I'm not invalidating the death motif because it is here. So there is a death motif that we need to acknowledge, but how does it look like? Because for now, we're being told, well, the death motif is you going into the water. Let's examine the two images we literally just saw.
Okay.
There's water in Moses' day, the Red Sea, that was baptism. There is the flood, 40 days, 40 nights. Noah calls that baptism. Let's immediately tie it to, I don't like to do this, but I guess we'll just do it for easiness sake. Let's immediately tie it to immersion and sprinkling.
Yeah.
In both accounts, who gets immersed?
The dead people.
Right, specifically? Okay, in Moses' day, who gets immersed?
The Egyptian army.
The Egyptian army, the waters came down and swallowed the chariots and everything.
Yeah.
The Noah's day,
Literally everybody but Noah's family. Yeah.
and then the people that get immersed does not come back up.
Come back up, yeah.
They die. That's the death motif.
So I'm supposed to be dead.
Yeah. Whatever goes down, the image we get is whatever goes down the water
Dies.
doesn't come back up. Right? And if you want to kind of make the image cleaner for you, is the dead you, the sinful you, stays in the water.
I see you.
It stays
Okay.
dead. Now, again, that's why, for example, churches like mine and maybe the Methodist Church, we actually won't invalidate your immersion, baptism by immersion, because it's not a lie. It's not inherently a lie.
Yeah.
It's just that seems like for the other image, majoritively, it's sprinkling, right? Because it's more on the cleansing. But there is a death motif, and the death motif is on the thing being immersed. So it would be good if we don't go around saying, well, you must be immersed because you will die, and the thing that dies doesn't come back up. Right, and which is true to some degree. You have to make that caveat. So, okay. Question now: who gets sprinkled?
Who gets sprinkled?
Yeah, in both accounts, in the Moses and Noah's account, who gets sprinkled?
Well, I guess the people in the boat they get a bit wet
Sure.
because the rain just doesn't stop.
The rain falls
rain
on them.
doesn't stop.
It sprinkles on them.
And the Israelites, do you think they all got wet by sprinkling?
The water is like rushing,
crashing-
right? Yeah. And
crashing
so
down
they
on-
definitely got a bit of you.
But there's like over 1 million of them though.
There you go. So isn't this now again? Isn't this the image we get?
Yeah.
Baptism is not this, well, you must be 18, we must make sure your confession's clean, we must make sure Noah, his entire family, the animals in his house, the animals in his boat, Israel, all their gold.
Were there children in Noah's case? No, right?
His children are,
They are of age.
yeah, you would say they're of age, but
Yeah.
Israel's case,
Oh yeah.
there you
Israel's
go.
case is a no,
Right,
yeah.
and not only that, you can't even say, oh, infants too, your animals. And the point is everything, right? Everything in your house, the entire nation.
Yeah. My cat, my dog, yeah.
Right. And again,
My fish.
right. And so people usually would go, oh, so I should baptize Jerry, my dog. No. But that's kind of the joke.
Yeah.
Tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But I think what that helps is to kind of stop making baptism this individual personal thing. Because so far, a lot of the theology we mentioned, your faith, your confession,
My household.
individualism.
Yes.
But what's the image we get in the passages we get? Families,
Yes.
nations,
Yes.
entire nations,
Yes.
your house, right? That's the collective image that we get. So, of course, when we want to teach baptism, we're not going to make it divorced from your house, divorced from your nation, your country, even your, whatever adoptive body you have.
So the outward expression of an inward faith one is actually invalidated by
And
this.
I wouldn't say completely invalidated,
Ah.
but I would say it seems to strike the wrong focus.
Yeah.
Right.
The
Whenever
focus is on the individual.
right, it's
And-
always individual.
I see.
But
Okay,
seems
okay.
like that's why when I said nowhere in the Bible, I'm not saying it's 100% invalid.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people would not even remotely believe it, right?
Yeah.
But we need to not shift the focus. When we just say the jargons, when we just say the catchphrases, that's your faith, your confession, we're slowly making people lose the focus.
I see.
It's slowly drifting people to think, oh, mine. But wait, your children, your house, everything that's included in it, right? So, okay, that's just one of those examples. I got another example from the New Testament,
Okay.
which is the Ethiopian eunuch. Or, actually, let me tackle the Romans 6 first. So, let's talk about the death motive since we were there just now. Romans 6, verse 1 says, what shall we say then? Shall we continue bound? Sorry, maybe not here. Ah, there you go. I'm going to start verse... you know what? Let me start verse 1. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Certainly not. How shall we who died to sin live any longer in it? Die to sin, no longer in it. Okay, that's the image we get again. How shall we live who died to sin live any longer in it? Or do you not know that as many of us were baptized into Christ Jesus were baptized into his death? Therefore we were buried with him through baptism into death, and just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. For if we have been united together in the likeness of his death, certainly we also shall be in the likeness of his resurrection. Okay, and I think this is the key point, right? The reason why I actually will say to people, and I said this to our brother James as well, right? You actually can't use Romans 6 to talk about water baptism. And for the simple fact, the baptism, I'm going to put quotation marks, the baptism in Romans 6 saves. And it saves completely. Because it says what? If you are united to him in his death, in his baptism, you're also resurrected with him. If you're an apostate, you got baptized by water, will you be resurrected into newness of life?
Baptized? Yes.
No, you're a false believer.
False believer. Oh no, I'm supposed to die.
Right.
Yeah.
So the water
Yeah.
doesn't change that fact.
Okay.
Now, okay, so this is where faith still comes into play. And that's why I think Romans 6, the only conclusion you can take is Paul is talking of the more spiritual aspect, or at least a different kind of baptism instead of water. Right? And the word can still be used, baptism, because the motif, the death motif, is the same. But I don't think you can immediately assume, oh, this is talking about water baptism, period.
Yeah.
Because if you say Romans 6 is about water baptism, you're in with the Catholic group who says, well, water baptism literally regenerates you.
Oh.
If you partake in the sacrament of baptism, your sins are cleansed, your nature is changed. That means you will change. You will be resurrected in the end, even if, of course, they won't say this, but Romans 6 makes it clear. If you're baptized at this point, you get resurrected to new life.
Even if you don't believe.
Right.
Is that?
Which means it cannot be about water baptism.
I see.
Because we know people who got water baptized and then eventually apostatize in their life. They don't get resurrected. And they don't share in Christ's resurrection. Right? That's what we would call regenerative function.
Mm.
Right? They're resurrected into damnation, not the same resurrection Christ has. So, at best, whenever people quote Romans 6, I will just tell them, hey, if you want to apply this to water baptism, you have to believe that if I commit apostasy now, I'm already baptized, I will go to heaven still. Yeah, because that's the conclusion Paul draws. So and I'm not saying there's two kinds of baptism now. Mm-hmm. I'm saying there's different categories. There's different, apparently, dimensions to it, where this type of baptism, and it seems like it's invisible, right? Because you join in Christ's death. Are you dead? Technically not. Right? So did you really join Christ's death? Yes. That's the answer. And you will join into his resurrection life.
Resurrection, yeah.
But this is the non-visible aspect. Water, I can see if you're water baptized. I can take a video of it and have like physical proof. Can you have physical proof of you dying with Christ? Kind of no.
Eventually.
Throughout your life.
Dying, but not with Christ. Yeah. Not the physical proof.
But
yeah.
you can't have a physical proof. That's the point.
Yeah.
And so, Romans 6, my simplest answer is, this is a different kind of baptism, a different aspect of it.
Okay. Yeah.
So now, what do we want to tackle? I suddenly forgot. Oh yeah, the final, one of the few other example from Acts, Ethiopian eunuch. So, you go Acts 8:36. Maybe you want to read it this time?
Yeah, I don't know why did I close it, but yeah.
That's fine. Or I can read it if you want.
One moment.
I got you if you want. Chapter
I
8,
think we'll let him.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'll do that.
Yeah,
Okay, chapter 8, verse 3.
36.
36. All right. Got verse 36. As they traveled along the road, they came to some water, and the eunuch said, "Look, here's water. What can stand in the way of my being baptized?" And he gave orders to stop the chariot. And then both Philip and the eunuch went down into the water, and Philip baptized him.
Right.
Yeah. Should I? Oh, then they came up out of the water.
Right.
The Spirit of the Lord suddenly took Philip away, and the eunuch did not see him again, but went on his way rejoicing.
Okay. So, that's the same account that we read previously, but I'm going to give a few more context. So, I'm going to read back a bit, verse 30, where it says, So Philip, remember, he got whisked away by the Spirit. He finds the Ethiopian eunuch, and then now he says, Philip ran to him and heard him reading the prophet of Isaiah, right, the book of Isaiah, and said, Do you understand what you're reading? And he said, How can I unless someone guides me? And he asked Philip to come up and sit with him. The place in the scripture which he read was this: He was led as a sheep to the slaughter, as a lamb before, so on and so forth. So he reads that part of Isaiah. But okay. And my only point here is actually, he's reading Isaiah, and after explaining, let me finish reading so the image is clearer. As a lamb before its shearer is silent, so he opened not his mouth. In his humiliation, his justice was taken away. Who will declare his generation? For his life is taken from the earth. So the eunuch answered Philip and said, I ask you, of whom does the prophet say this? Of himself or of some other man? Then Philip opened his mouth, beginning at this scripture, preached Jesus to him. Now as they went down to the road, they came to some water. And that's where. So he preached from Isaiah 42 onward, and his conclusion is, I need to get baptized. One funny thing you kind of have to do is, okay, as a church, can you do the baptism course on Isaiah 40?
Fire out the pool now.
Yeah. Can you do Isaiah 54 all the way to the end and have your students conclude, I need to get baptized?
In a couple of hours, and then force them. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think what I'm scared is the fact that I don't think we can.
Yeah,
like theologically, it's missing. Because again, Isaiah is missing from all our baptismal quotation. But seems like whatever Philip is teaching makes it so that the eunuch understood, I must. This is not like a later thing. This is not a, let me consider my faith. Let me consider which church I have to attend. Like, there's this puddle.
Yeah.
And it's probably dirty as heck, right? This is the side of the street. If you see a longkang at the side of the street and you immediately go, there's water. I don't care about the quality. Now, what's stopping? That's literally the eunuch's question. What's stopping this flowing? And again, kind of like the urgency, right, is already there. And that's just me kind of, harping on some churches who kind of actually block. They put a barrier, a synthetic barrier to baptism. Which is like, well, if you want to get baptized to our church, you need to take this
class.
Yeah, go through this class, take this 9-month
Guilty.
course. Right. No, I'm not saying you particularly are guilty. And that's the sad thing, isn't it?
It's once a year.
Right. Which is like, okay, fine. Some churches want to make it practical. But it seems like that's just not the feeling the eunuch gets. The eunuch is like, no, where?
No,
what?
yeah.
No, and Philip isn't like, well, I don't know if you only read like 4 chapters. We don't know if you're like a real Christian yet.
Yeah.
It's one of those, right?
And he was like, no, it's kind
If
of
you
nasty.
put it in a modern
Like,
church, it actually does look like that.
it's nasty, but it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
But yeah, the modern church makes it so that I don't know if you're a real Christian. Let's test you a little bit. Right?
Yeah.
Let's get you through a course. No,
Okay, yeah.
the eunuch reads Isaiah and goes, "Oh, no delay, no nothing now." Right. So and
What,
again,
what if people raise to you an argument that that's a different time when the prophets were being persecuted, when the apostles were being persecuted?
But no, that feeds into my argument better because you're persecuted.
Yeah.
If you get baptized, you show you're a Christian, you're even more persecuted. So
Yeah.
why the urgency?
No. So it's like from Philip's perspective, be like, I don't have time to test him. Baptize him now.
Right.
You know?
I don't think that's a problem because the fact we're talking from the eunuch's perspective,
Mhm.
the fact that he doesn't care there's a persecuted minority or whatever.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, he goes, wait, this is true. If this is true, I need to get baptized.
Yeah, I need it now. Yeah.
Right. So the fact that, and again, I think it's the same kind of thing where if you already acknowledge part of baptism is death, then death kind of loses its weight on you. And I think that's one of the homiletic a lot of baptismal preacher have, right? Whenever we have homiletics during baptism service, one of it is about death and how you already joined death. That death has no weight on you anymore. It's no longer a leverage thing because you already joined Christ's death. So I think the eunuch appropriately has that theology because we're going to assume he has read
The Torah.
other parts of
Yeah.
Isaiah before. Right? But the point is, he stuck to Isaiah. He read Isaiah, and his conclusion was like right now.
Yeah.
Right, snappy. So, yeah, and that's just, again, maybe not your church, maybe not our church, but if the churches are like, oh, let's wait, that's not there. That's not in the Bible. That doesn't seem to come from anywhere in the Old Testament, New Testament. So that's also one of those things we have to examine and recheck. So, okay. And then, I guess now is the time where we talk about infant inclusion and other aspects of it. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
One quick question. Is there an argument where the one baptizing you must be registered or must be legitimate?
Yeah, so some people will argue that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, Catholics believe that. I'm sure Methodists also believe that, right?
Yes.
For sacrament, for the Lord's Supper as well.
Because if it's according to this logic, then the one who's sharing the gospel with you and gets you to,
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Has to do it. And Philip wasn't necessarily ordained. quote
there
unquote.
was no qualification.
There is no such thing. There you go.
So yeah.
There you go. You got it too, which is true. We've for a lot of churches, we kind of put a barrier on, like, who can. Here's the thing. One example: my pastor, he baptizes his own 2 daughters because guess what? You can. He's a Christian. He knows what it means.
So
He
the
can-
ones who goes to sharing your faith classes and workshops also should have
yeah. If you're talking to
baptism
someone, right?
classes.
If you talk with your classmate,
Yeah.
and they're like,
Oh,
you know what, Zach?
I want-
I'm in. I'm all in.
I want him. I
And
want
Open a water tap.
Hallelujah. No, yeah, but as absurd that might sound to us,
Go to the toilet, or like,
yeah, and as absurd as that sounds to us, that actually shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because and here's the thing, for a lot of people that want their baptism to be bombastic, they're doing the same sin Naaman is engaging in. They're doing the whole, well, why can't I be baptized in the waters of Harpar and Abana?
Yeah, why can't it be in a
Asking
hot
for
tub?
more, like,
Sorry?
Why can't it be in a hot tub?
Why can't it be? I kid you not. Small anecdote. I see people get baptized in the, do you know the water park thing where there's a bucket, it gets
Yes.
filled up, and then it tips over. I'm like, oh my goodness, if I've ever seen a sacramental abuse in any, oh my goodness. And it was here.
Are you willing to name call?
Nah.
No, they
But
know who
no,
they are, right?
No, because I'm pretty sure they're not the only one. I'm pretty sure it's pretty common. That's the saddest thing. But oh man, it's pretty sad. But anyway, yeah,
it's like gamifying.
yeah. It's like what is that? What where is that? What is that? And again, we're shifting the
It
focus.
seems like the one baptizing needs to engage in the longkang water.
Right.
Yeah, so when you do that, you're kind of taking away one part of the baptism, right? When you automate the
Right.
yeah.
And I'm like, right, because the answer is what's stopping the water.
Yeah.
I'm the water park bucket. That's so dumb. But yeah, the shift has so gone that for some reason water park buckets, that's not seen as dumb. But tap water, that's like, oh, why would I get baptized tap water? But wait, the eunuch is okay with side street water.
Yeah.
We've lost the focus. Right? Doesn't matter if your baptism is bombastic or not, if it's like in the church you want or not or whatever. You kind of can't wait on that. Those are one of those things that you're not allowed to do the sin of Naaman, where it's like harpar, Havana. There's just better options.
Yeah.
But the prophet tells me the dingy water of Jordan, which is interestingly enough, eventually the water our Lord got baptized in. So again, it's just one of those things where we need to refocus, right? And I'm not saying it has always to be.
Clear my curiosity, please. Is it possible to be baptized as a without someone baptizing you?
I don't think that's
possible, right?
Because
there needs to be a baptizer and a baptizee.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just be like, baptize myself in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, turns on the tap and just gets sprinkled by a shower head.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I think there's enough imagery where there's
it's always two.
There's always someone sprinkling.
Someone, yes.
At least, right? So, and I don't think you can argue, well, symbolically Jesus is sprinkling me. I don't think that's a problem. Because the eunuch did say to Philip, hey, Philip, you're here.
Yeah.
And he doesn't necessarily, can you show me your identification card? Can you show me your preaching license? He doesn't need that, but he does need Philip. He does need the one who knows what it means to be baptized, to baptize him.
Yeah.
So at minimum, I would say that. And again, maybe if we talk about the image, we linger on the image just a little bit more to talk about it. Sprinkling is technically not the only image there is, right? Because the first few Old Testament passage we talk about has nothing to do with sprinkling. It has to do with crossing. Okay, so let's tackle the Jesus being immersed. If we're not just going to argue based on Greek preposition,
just the definition. Yeah.
Let's argue with the image. The image so far is passing sprinkling.
Yes.
The one that immersed dies, doesn't come back out. So actually, if you really think about it, get rid of all the catchphrase, all your assumption, what would it look like when John the Baptist was baptizing? With all the image we have. It has to include the two elements, right? Which is passing
and the
sprinkling.
Yeah.
So if I can propose an image, you see there's the river Jordan, and remember what happened in Chronicles. Judah has to cross
Yes.
to enter back in, and that's gonna be kind of like another Exodus. So John the Baptist likely stands in the middle of the water, and people cross. They cross as they meet John the Baptist in the middle. He pours the water, and then they cross, because that completes the image. Right now, the image is clean, where there is a crossing and there is a sprinkling. And I believe that's normally how you probably want to do it. So yeah, you can do it in a river. And to be symbolically accurate, to be image-wise accurate, you make them stand initially somewhere and then meet in the middle.
Cross the quote-unquote.
Cross, yeah. And again, you don't have to. We just are teaching, and we need to get the focus correct. What we don't want is to say immerse, nowhere there.
Yeah.
And I'm not dogmatic, because hey, Philip the eunuch can't like
Couldn't,
there's a puddle. Like what, he steps over it, that's doesn't matter, right? The image that he obeys there was probably getting sprinkled, and the fact that it was fast, he was snappy about it. So we don't need to be dogmatic about the whole, oh, you didn't get baptized this way, not second-rate Christian, right? You don't need to do that. So, and yeah, we just need to really consider what are being taught in a lot of these baptism passages. But anyway, let's move on to children. What about children? No faith.
Oh no, they can't make decisions of their own.
They're mentally not there.
Yeah.
They can't profess their own faith.
Yeah.
I would argue by that kind of theology, you're not allowed to ever baptize mentally autistic person and mentally invalid person. I'm sorry. I don't know about you, actually. Do tell me. Have you guys baptized, have your churches baptized mentally invalid people?
I am unaware,
Right.
but I just don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't recall any cases. No.
Right. Yourself?
The furthest the furthest I can remember is probably just someone who is actually like conscious. It's just that he speaks Cantonese instead of Chinese. So
That's not.
yeah, that's not even valid. But
Yeah.
I now recall 2 cases, but they are not mentally invalid.
They're just.
My cousin is a little bit. He's a bit different. He's not.
He has.
He doesn't qualify as autistic.
Yeah, but he
But
has
he's a little
challenge.
slower. Yeah, he does have
Yeah.
challenges,
Right.
mental challenges, but he can make decisions of his own.
I see.
And
Alright.
he was baptized, and there's another case. Yeah, she's a little slower.
Yeah.
That's the only one that I remember.
Yeah,
The only
but-
2. Yeah,
but-
but mentally invalid? No, I
Right.
can't recall.
But what I'm introducing here is a kind of like a problem
Mhm.
where this kind of theology immediately makes it so that if you're slower than most, if you're like intellectually challenged, if you're mentally disabled, you're kind of exempt straight up from the blessings, the commands of being baptized. So that's a problem we kind of don't want to run into. And although we don't necessarily have a similar case in scripture where someone mentally invalid is baptized, we at least have the eunuch, which is physically, I guess,
Spiritually young.
spiritually very young.
Yeah.
Again, you can definitely ask, hey, do you even know specifically what's the Trinity? What is this? What's that?
Yeah. Probably has no Bible verses
But
memorized.
Right.
what is salvation?
No, what is
Yeah,
salvation?
yeah.
But seems like intellectual assent
Yeah.
is not within the category. He
Okay.
believes, he's convinced, and doesn't matter. Philip says, well, I'm a Jew, you're an Ethiopian. We might understand things differently here. No, he says, okay, let's get baptized. So I'm just bringing that up real quick as kind of the, things on top of my head.
What if people argue that, but he still decided?
He still decided, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna run into some of those passages,
Alright,
which we
alright,
can test.
Okay.
But how to say? Maybe we'll tackle it as the passages go through, right? So let's start
okay.
going through some passages. So it's not like ethereal. I don't want to make it about like neurology and stuff like that, because I don't think those considerations are also in the Bible.
I wouldn't understand.
Right. So anyway, I'm gonna make the argument very interesting here. I'm actually gonna not argue from like conscience and all these things, because again, I think that draws away from the focus. The fact that earlier we were talking about self, profession, and then I'm talking about nations, people groups. I'm gonna shift the focus. We talk about intellectual assent, knowledge, consciousness, but wait. The Bible has a couple of different things to say. So Hebrews 1:14, I'm going to read this one,
Right.
and then I'm going to have someone else read another passage. So Hebrews 1, beginning verse 14, says, let me read a bit earlier, verse 10, and you, Lord, in the beginning laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. They will perish, but you remain, and they will all grow old like a garment. Like a cloak, you will fold them up, and they will be changed. But you are the same, and your years will not fail. But to which of the angels has he ever said, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool? So I'm going to give really quick context. Hebrews, the author of Hebrews, is quoting all the Old Testament passages. It's talking about Jesus, right? To who did the angel say, to who did God say to any of the angels, sit at my right hand? Right? God didn't say that to any angel. He said that to his son. Right? Because the angels are nothing. Moses is nothing. The son, he promises everything. Right? Your years will not fail. You'll crush all your enemies under your foot. And then he says, to which of the angels has he ever said, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool? Are they being the angels, are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister for those who will inherit salvation? So we talk about status, and we talk about the purpose of the angel, which is interesting. And I'm pretty sure no baptismal classes ever talks about angels, but we're going to talk about angels because I like metaphysics, right? The author of Hebrews is arguing the Father never said to any angel, "Sit at my right hand." Why? Because angels are just servants. They're slaves. They're flaming fire. They're ministering to what? To people who will inherit salvation. So they're inheriting salvation from Jesus, and the angels administer that. Who are those who will inherit salvation? From the infant Baptist point of view, it's not just us personally, it's also our children, right? So the angels do minister to our children. And in fact, we do get a passage that explicitly says this, because it only is inferred here, but we get a passage that explicitly says it. You go to Matthew 18, 10 to 14. Now you read it, Chinkang, because me and Zach have been reading.
Matthew 18,
10 to 14.
10 to 14.
Yep.
Let me begin from verse 10.
Yep.
See that you do not despise one of those little ones, for I tell you that in heaven the angels always see the face of my Father who is in heaven. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go in search of the one that went astray? And if he finds it, truly I say to you, he rejoices over it more than over the 99 that never went astray. So it is not the will of my Father who is in heaven that one of these little ones should perish.
Right. So, very interesting. The argument that Jesus makes to not provoke or despise the little ones in the kingdom, notice, the little ones are in the kingdom. And some people want to argue, but they're old enough. They're old enough. The text, if you go earlier in the context, Jesus was blessing the children. We're told that some comes to him and some has to be carried to him.
Has to be brought to him by parents, yeah.
Right? And if Jesus says, these little ones must include those, right? And what's his argument of not despising them?
Angels.
Because there are angels who look upon my Father forever. Just to make the argument a bit more modern and understand it, what do you think their angels will do to you if you despise them? Right? You get the idea. And again, I'm arguing metaphysically first. I'm sure, because other arguments have been done to death, but I'm just going to bring a different perspective here.
Okay.
Because the little one has angels. Boom. Will you say an unbeliever has angels? But, whoops. Will you say people outside the covenant have angels? No. But these little ones that Jesus blessed, they have angels. And be careful, don't despise them, because they have guardian angels. Right? So actually, yes, when you are baptized as a child, you actually get covenantal blessings. And it includes having angels who look upon the Father forever.
Ministering.
Right, ministering upon the Father forever. Again, ties to the Hebrews thing. They're ministering what? Salvation. And again, we've talked about this all the time before. Salvation isn't you. It's not you intellectually assenting to the gospel. It's not you understanding and whatnot. So why is that suddenly the barrier for baptism? Because it seems like the angel doesn't care how intellectually capable you are. They'll minister salvation to you. And it seems like children are involved. And again, the word in Hebrew is interesting because it says inherit. Inherit is inherently, pun, inherit is inherently a function of a son, right? Because, for example, you and I, we're all sons. We're technically still sons. Why? We're still sleeping under our parents' bed, right? We don't have our parents' full inheritance, right? Because we're still children, right? When they die and when we grow old, we'll get the inheritance. But the children is in the process of inheriting, right? Because although they don't have all of it, you're still eating, you're still sleeping under your parents' guardianship, right? And the fact that the function of inheriting is what's being given in the for covenantal blessing, right? Inheriting is the function. You kind of can't exclude children because that's what the word is for. If you're an adult, you're guarding, you're a guardian, but it seems like you are children in this kind of vision. And that's, again, people will say, well, that's not definitive, that's not, and I'm just saying, this is one of those arguments that people kind of forget. The little words that we use, that the Bible uses, seems to escape people's mind. We talk about inheritance, and that kind of means nothing to us nowadays. But wait, if you talk to a 40-year-old man and you say, "Are you inheriting?" Say, "What are you talking about? I have to work." Rightly so, because how to say? That's you gotta earn by that point. You're no longer children. Children's inherit. Inheriting is a function of children. So if salvation is being inherited, and we'd argue part of it is by being blessed, being covenantally included, why is the covenantal entry, baptism, excluding children? Right? We gotta make the image here. We gotta make the whole picture full.
Oh, I just realized something. Side note. When man sin, God says, "Oh, you wanna be adult work."
Right? You'll die.
Yeah.
Because now you'll no longer inherit from my house. Boom. That's the difference between a son and a bastard. A bastard gets out of the house. They die. If you're a Christian parent, do you tell your child, "Oh well, there's no confession from you, so how about you prove it?" You go out and you prove your confession, then maybe you're my son, right? And I think here's the thing. I think this is a particular Asian sin, and it's quite prevalent, and that's kind of why I decided to tackle it from this angle first. A son inherits. He doesn't deserve anything. He doesn't work for anything. He is purely under grace. Whenever he receives from his parents, it's purely by grace. The parents love him regardless of whatever he does, because all he does is cry. That's salvation. That's the perfect image of salvation. When you administer baptism to a child when he's not even conscious, you can tell him that story of this is what was done to you when you haven't even done a single thing. Because that's what salvation is about. None of you, all of God. Suddenly, talk about baptism, oh you, where's the proof? Where's the confession? Suddenly the shift changes, right? And in Asian household, usually, children have to earn inheritance. Prove to me you're my son. That's not how a tang, that's not how a, what's your tan?
was surprisingly similar.
That's not how a tang, that's not how a lim, that's not how a tan acts. You prove. But that's a problem, because for a lot of Asian household, the image is the son has to work for his inheritance. He has to prove to his father he deserves. But a lot of the biblical imagery is the father has to make the son worthy of his inheritance. Right? He has to teach the son. The son can't do anything. What can he do? And that's exactly the image. So the father can administer baptism to his child. Because why? Because the father has to make the son a proper inheritor. Right? He has to be the proper testament to the father's teaching, to the father's integrity, and all that. So it's an absurd image to flip that and say, well, I know you are a child in a Christian household, but that doesn't mean anything. That's actually the parents' fault. This is the sin of the older generation. They're saying, well, if he becomes apostate, that's not on me. That's his own personal faith. But wait, we're pretending that the parents have zero impact on the child's faith and upbringing.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
That's not true. We're talking about, for example, Proverbs says, you teach a child his your ways, and he'll never depart from it. And that's actually not just a promise, that's also a warning. If you teach your child to be belligerent, to not be part of your house, to not deserve to be called a tang or a tan or a lim, then he's not going to act like your son. Boom. There's the warning for you parents, right? So actually, I think a lot of the reason why we have so much inclination to exclude children, because the implications of involving children is heavy. It means you parents, you need to make your son deserving of that baptism. That's not on them. They don't need to
The
prove jack.
responsibility is on parents.
The parents. The children didn't need to do jack diddly squat. And this is the exact same. I'm not going to jump the gun too far. But we talk about, some people would argue, circumcision is baptism. And although I wouldn't disagree, that's actually, I would say that's jumping a bit too fast. But the image is the exact same. The child is helpless.
Yeah.
He can't do anything. The fact that this circumcision happens apart from his will, his capability, and all that, is the sign that it's all grace. Right? And if we remove it, the video ended, so I'm just gonna put it all the way back. We took a long one, even though I delayed, I put a playback seat. But yeah, so let's not dwell on it too long because we already got our time indicator.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the image we get, right? And I think we can do all the other passage that's always been done to death.
Okay.
But this is the perspective that I think is missing for us who are in like Asian cultures. So
I definitely didn't think of it this way. You're
right.
kind of blowing my mind here.
yeah, and you will be parents. You guys have to acknowledge that and kind of take it into your baptism. Your baptism isn't like this one thing you do once and then you forget about it. For your children, it's a sign forever on you.
Makes sense. Parents literally make decisions to set the trajectory of my life, where I learn what I eat, what I wear.
I'm sick. What do I take?
Yeah.
Well, why don't you read medical articles? Why am I taking care of your health?
Yeah.
Because
but for some reason, it cannot be about faith.
Yeah, for faith, why don't you consider your own faith? Why don't you work out your own? Weird. It's such a weird image, right?
It is.
That's
Yeah,
not,
it doesn't make sense here.
yeah. Socially, society, even like with how society functions, that doesn't stand. Children has to get brought up. So anyway, I got a few other passages. Let's see if we can run through them real fast.
Okay.
Mark 16:16, just real quick. Somebody read that. You want to read that one, Zach?
I got you. 16.
Mm-hmm.
All right, verse 16. Whoever believes, and I'm for some reason in NIV now. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned.
Right. So usually people would use this. Oh, see, believe. Believe is required, and if you don't believe, you are condemned.
Mm-hmm.
But again, apply the same logic for mentally lesser people.
Yeah.
Or again, here's the funny thing. This the funny thing where a lot of people who are anti-Calvinist usually will say, "Oh, Calvinists believe that babies go to hell." Well, if you're a Baptist, Mark 16:16 says children go to hell because whoever does not believe is damned already.
Yeah.
So that means every children who never gets to profess faith, what, goes to hell? Boom, you already got another problem.
That kind of reminded me of the something that is mentioned about difference between Protestants and Catholics when they decide to, okay, when a mother is in like hard labor,
Right.
do they want to keep the mother alive or the child alive?
Right. And Catholics would say keep the child.
Keep the child alive because they haven't been baptized.
Yeah, because they're worried they haven't gone through any of the sacraments. But again, we talk about this. This actually strengthens the importance of faith only and grace only. The fact that it doesn't matter how many sacraments you go through in your life. If you confess and instantly die, you will still gain eternal life because the only barrier is faith. We're talking about covenantal blessings and all that, right? Which, for a child, he gets included regardless of his mental faculty, regardless of whatever. But he needs to go through the sacraments, right? Meanwhile, if you believe, as a lot of people do, baptism requires repentance, faith, like expressed outward, explicit faith. A lot of people are going to hell purely because of their mental faculty and purely because they died at the wrong time, at slightly late, and didn't get enough sacrament. So that's a problem. And I'm just saying that this passage is not definitive. I'm just saying only immersionist, only anti-infant Baptist people, they can't use this passage with that kind of interpretation because it would damn a lot of people that they would even disagree with themselves.
Who didn't do the right thing, who didn't do the right work.
Who didn't get baptized, and who died before they could profess the faith, right? So, and again, I'm just bringing that up because it's funny. That's usually the Calvinist accusation. You believe babies go to hell. If you're a consistent Calvinist, you're also a Pedobaptist. You believe God can put faith in a little child who can express it. So, and in fact,
and a very funny irony is that children kind of believe anything.
They're funny, right? Yeah. We kind of say contradictory things. Children believe anything. You don't believe in God. Oh wait.
Yeah, but then isn't that your fault?
Yeah. That's you. You made them believe whatever.
Okay, so hence the responsibility on the parents.
Yeah. And that's heavy for people. And that's the sin that they, I think, are petting whenever they go full hog. Oh, it has to be children. I'm not saying they're all inherently having this sin, right? But that's kind of the cover that we run whenever we have this shift in theology. What's happening?
Okay.
Right. And in fact, the next thing I'm going to do immediately is go through all the instance where infants, babies, actually do express faith. So
Alright.
I'm going to read the first one. Maybe you want to prepare. Maybe you want to prepare the second one. You go to 2 Samuel 12:15. You hover there first, and you hover on 1 Kings 14:13. I'm going to read Psalm 22, verse 9 to 10. Psalm 22, verse 9 says, "But you are he who took me out of the womb. You made me trust," or some translation would say hope. "You made me trust while on my mother's breast. I was cast upon you from birth, from my mother's womb. You have been my God, but not far from me. For trouble is near and there is none to help." Interesting. Psalm 22. Anyone remember context? Yes, it's David in trouble, but it's a messianic psalm. Right? It's the psalm that Jesus quotes.
Yeah.
Right? My God, why have you forsaken me? And so on and so forth. And then we have the whole passage of, they pierce my hands and feet. They take my clothes. In the middle of it, he prays, "I trusted in you since where? I put my hope in you since where? My mother's. And you have been my God since my mother's breast, my mother's womb." Wow. And you have to say, David prayed the psalm, and Jesus also prayed the psalm. Here's the funny story. I met, I think, a lot of SDAs. I met like a couple SDA, and the person asked me, "Oh, Marco, when did you become a Christian? When did you have a personal relationship with God?" And I said, "Probably since I was a child. I don't know, because I've always believed. There's not a point that I remember not believing." And then he says, No. Personal, like your full confession, not just." And I'm like, "Well, children can have faith." And he said, No, that's not true. I told him to read this exact passage, and I told him, "Okay, who's praying that? David. Did Jesus pray that exact same prayer?" "Yes." "Are you saying Jesus and David is lying?" Boom, dead. That's a kill shot.
Yeah.
Sorry, just one passage, immediately kill shot.
It makes sense. It also makes sense why the left is it
Yeah, right, right.
would be so adamant towards going to the kids.
Right. And that's because they can and they will. But here's the thing. The funny thing is the left will say, "Well, that's a clump of cell."
Yeah.
But then they indoctrinate them when they get a little bit older. So they want to cut off life early, but they also acknowledge that children have a lot of potential to be indoctrinated. So again, it seems like even the left has a baptismal theology, right? They have a theology of baptism, what it looks like. And it seems like, oh, whoops. It's
Yeah,
fine.
you did that.
That's fine. But it seems like the left wants to kill the child or indoctrinate them to death, their death cult, right? So anyway, again, just a funny little proof text there that literally destroys the whole children can't have faith. Whoops, too bad. Jesus had faith when he was a child. And no, you can't say that's just Jesus. Oh, because Jesus is God. David prayed this prayer. David's not a liar unless you want to say this psalm is invalid. Anyway, let's go to the next quotation, 2 Samuel 12,
2 Samuel 12. What was the verse again?
15 to 23.
15 to 23. So I start from 15.
Yep.
Then Nathan went to his house. And the Lord afflicted the child that Uriah's wife bore to David, and he became sick. David therefore sought God on behalf of the child, and David fasted and went in and lay all night on the ground. And the elders of his house stood beside him to raise him from the ground, but he would not, nor did he eat food with them. On the seventh day the child died, and the servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, "Behold, while the child was yet alive, we spoke to him, and he did not listen to us. How then can we say to him that the child is dead? He may do himself some harm." But when David saw that his servants were whispering together, David understood that the child was dead. And David said to his servants, "Is the child dead?" They said, "He is dead." Then David arose from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his clothes. And he went into the house of the Lord and worshipped. He then went to his own house. And when he asked, they set food before him, and he ate. Then the servants said to him, "What is this thing that you have done? You have fasted and wept for the child while he was alive. But when the child died, you arose and ate food." He said, "While the child was still alive, I fasted and wept, for I said, 'Who knows whether the Lord will be gracious to me, that the child may live. But now he is dead. What should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he will not return to me.
Right, that's the end of it. That's a crazy, touching story. I'm tearing up just because of that. But David's final line is crazy. He says, I will go to him.
Yeah. He can't come to me, I will go to him. Yeah.
Wait, is the child in hell? Or is the child somewhere David's going?
Mm.
Wait. And again, crazy, right? The way he treats children is something that we need to really mimic today. In the womb, sick, and again, slightly only for a few while outside the womb, already sick. David ministered for the child. David did everything on behalf of the child. He fasted and prayed and wept. Can you say, I can fast for my children, I can pray for my children, I can do all these things on behalf of someone? For a lot of evangelical theology, you'd say, no, you can't. Prayer is you. Your fasting is you. But wait, seems like David can do that for his child. And then he was depressed. He puts his face down. He doesn't eat. Then when the child dies, he gets a different kind of hope. When he was fasting, when the child was alive but sick, his hope was the child would be restored. But now that the child is dead, his hope is not that he'll be resurrected. His hope is that he'll
join him.
He'll join him. That means, and this is, so, for some people, they are really contentious with this, even from the Reform side. But actually, I would argue that means Christian parents can actually at least be promised that their children will go to heaven.
Mm.
What is David saying? If not, I'll go to hell. No, doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? I'll go to my son. The reunion is so assumed that it boggles your mind. And I think it boggles our mind only because we make salvation about only us and that type of thing.
Yeah, only between us and God. Yeah.
But that's not the case. Seems like children are so inherently part of the covenant promise that we can even assume something like their salvation, right? I don't think that's absurd. And I know a lot of people usually contend that. I'd really ask them, hey, read this passage, right? I'd really challenge you to tell me what the heck is David saying by him going to his son. Okay, anyway, you read the next one, which is 1 Kings 14:13.
14,
13.
13.
Yeah.
Okay, all Israel will mourn for him and bury him. He is the only one belonging to Jeroboam who will be buried, because he's the only one in the house of Jeroboam in whom the Lord, the God of Israel, has found anything good.
Right.
An unborn kid, yeah? That's the
A
context.
child?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Right.
just a young boy, yeah.
And he is better than the entire,
Yeah.
than all
Then
of
Jeroboam's entire house.
entire house.
Yeah.
Wait. In the evangelical baptismal theology, if a whole household is Christian and there's this one infant, he's the most unclean thing because he has not professed a single thing. And yet there is an instance where image is flipped. The whole
Yeah.
house is dirty. Except what? So the
Except the
child.
little guy, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Crazy. Interesting. So, and I think this would be an encouragement to a lot of those Christians who were born in a backslidden Christian household, right? They might have the temptation to feel, my parents backslid from my faith. I want to take it seriously, but I'm like the lowest in the hierarchy of the house. But wait, if you're the one who has been touched by God and is the most active with your faith as you grew up, then you're like this kid who is the highest, who is the cleanest thing in Jeroboam's house, right? And so that's an encouragement for a lot of people who feel that they're kind of gimped by a backslidden Christian household, or even worse, a Philistine household, right? They can actually be a blessing still. They can be the greatest thing for their own house. And that's just, again, the short thing. Let me go Jeremiah 1, verse 4. Then the word of the Lord came to me, saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you a prophet to the nations. Then said I, O Yahweh Elohim, behold, I cannot speak, for I am a youngling, a youth. But the Lord said to me, do not say I'm young, for you shall go to all whom I send you, and whatever I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of their faces, for I am with you to deliver you, says Yahweh. And again, You might say, oh, but he's already old enough to say all that. But it started all the way since Yahweh said, I sanctified you. Where? In the womb. Children can get sanctified. Again, very simple. Like things that are missing from our theology, but it kind of should always be there. That's right there. And I think the last few ones, Chen Kang, can you go Luke 1? Luke 1, 41, and then read all the way to 44.
Luke
Or maybe-
1:41.
Yeah.
A moment.
You need me to
Verse
do anything?
41. And when Elizabeth heard the greeting of Mary, the baby leaped in her womb. And Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. And she exclaimed with a loud cry, Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And why is this granted to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me? But behold, when the sound of your greeting came to my ears, the baby in my womb leaped for joy. And blessed is she who believed that there would be a fulfillment of what was spoken to her from the Lord.
Yeah, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
So,
John the Baptist
John
knew.
the Baptist. John
Yeah.
the Baptist, since when? Since in the womb.
In the womb.
He responded to his own mother's song, right?
Yeah.
How can the mother of my own Lord? And then John the Baptist leapt. Again, it goes against all our narrative of children can't have faith. We just went through all these stories that I think, honestly, on Sunday school, we've read, but it just passed us. Like it escapes our mind for
I
some
definitely
reason.
didn't think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and crazy again. These are like really touching passages, right? Really amazing passages. A child who's in a broken down house, but he's the most exalted according to God. David putting his faith. He says that he puts his faith since the womb. John the Baptist acknowledging that his God is before him, literally, physically. Crazy stuff. And again, I think like it or not, a lot of the evangelical baptismal theology is such a like evanescent dream compared to what the scripture has in view for children.
Yeah,
right?
true.
Children is an amazing recipient of God's blessing.
Yeah.
And we're robbing them. We're just straight up robbing them of all covenantal blessing.
True. It is a shame because like every passage that when you tackle it this way, one thing that's very apparent is that a familial covenant is usually done in is usually highlighted and narrated in
Yeah.
such a beautiful way.
Right. And I think this is, we talk about how the kind of liberal new generation hates children, right? And I think here's one thing I always say: judgment begins at the house of the Lord. Whenever there's evil things in the world, it's because we in the church didn't deal with them first. Why is it that this new generation upcoming hates children? They abort them, they indoctrinate them, they abuse them. I think it's because we have exempted children from the covenant first. I think our theology has shifted to a point where the world now has room. The devil, the world, the principalities therein have ammunition to just straight up assault our children. Right? Crazy. And again, we really have to think about that in a societal scale, in a national scale, how our theology impacts the way people view children.
We do not bring them into our covenant.
No.
And then the world takes them into theirs.
Yeah. And then we cry, oh, they're little Caesars, they're little Romans. Wait, as a Baptist, you believe they're little Romanists. I love Jesus. No, you don't. Not until I say so. Right? But again, if we already treat them as little pagans, and then we're shocked, oh, they become pagans. That's our fault. Why are we shocked? Right? So I'm going to go through just a few more, just a little bit more to not make this too long. I'm going to make this one quick. So I encourage people who are listening to just check the passages for themselves. But there are 3 everlasting covenant according to the Old Testament, right? Genesis 17, 7 to 14. And then there's Romans 2:26, Philippians 3:3, Colossians 2:11. But to summarize all that passage, the 3 everlasting covenant are Passover, Sabbath, and circumcision. A little, I guess I'll just leave this as a hint. We still have Passover. What's that? Lord's Supper, right? Lord's Supper is the new Passover. We still have Sabbath. That's still a thing. Where's circumcision?
Baptism.
Boom.
Baptism.
There you go. And that's just the shortest form of it. Otherwise, we'll be here for another 4 hours.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Just want to say,
again,
I just want to say really quickly, we went so long, my butt is in pain.
that's fine.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. But oh man, this is good stuff. I'm having fun. I don't know
Yeah.
about you guys.
Yeah. I am mind blown, dog.
Yeah. Crazy. Again, and again,
No, it just feels like a shame. Like a lot of the beauty,
yeah.
a lot of the beauty is excluded when we shift the focus to an individual relationship.
right. It's so sad.
There
And,
is beauty,
yeah.
but it just seems incomplete.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the facade, right? We think, oh, we'll have more family months, family programs, family getaways in
Yeah,
the church.
But God is not there.
But yeah, that's not what God instituted for your family.
Yeah.
The primary thing was, this is the sign for you and your children. That's
Yeah.
the one we don't obey. Doesn't matter how many things you stack on top of it. Right? This is what makes the family unit. You miss this. Right? The psalmist says, someone builds a city in vain if God is not the foundation, if God doesn't build it first. And we're trying to build our families. The churches are trying to get people to care about their families. And yet on this one thing, they say, well, this is not a family thing. You can't say you're a Christian because your family was. Boom, killed it. You just destroyed our entire foundation for familyhood. It's gone, right? Because the everlasting sign of the covenant for the family got demolished. Anyway, again, don't want to make it too long. Circumcision and baptism signify the exact same things. Both are called seals. They signify entrance into covenant community. They point to justification by faith. They symbolize regeneration, helplessness. We talked about that. They're administered to generally helpless people. Both are spoken about as cleansing, defilement, cutting off, uncleanness. Right? Both signify a requirement for death. Both has physical and spiritual significance. Cutting off, death, spiritual death, all those things. And then both are commanded to whole households, and both promise remissions of sin. And and to keep, I think there was one argument you wanted to bring up. Oh yeah, one baptism. I'll make this one really short. Why should we only have one baptism? Again, I wouldn't really harp on people that has like 4 or worse, 3.5 a year. But I think, the focus being shifted is, it's an experience. It's the thing that you go through over and over again. But the interesting thing is, Paul says there's, in Ephesians 4, there is one Lord, one baptism, one salvation. So I could get the last one wrong, but definitely one Lord, one baptism. He doesn't say one Lord's Supper. He doesn't say one any other ordinance. He says one baptism. There seems to be a peculiarity about the oneness of it, right? And that's actually why I think the main principle is not like, oh, you can only ever get one. I think the main principle is, in that passage in Ephesians 4, Paul is talking about unity. So I think the one sin that kind of tackles is, oh, you got baptized in another church by sprinkling, that's invalid. That breaks the unity. We have to say, you, me, we have one baptism. We crossed the Jordan together that day. We crossed the Red Sea together that day. You're not awake, you're not conscious or whatever, you're not in the same church as me, you're not, doesn't matter. That's our basis for unity.
Yeah.
So we, again, insane amount of theology packed here.
Yeah.
These are lessons for children, these are lessons for familyhood, these are lessons for unity, always packed up here.
Yeah.
And it's missing, or it's just everywhere. So we really need to recover this theology. This is not one of those things that's like, oh, that's secondary issue. That's not salvation. Sorry, that's the problem with a lot of evangelicals nowadays. And yeah, I think that's about it. I can do the whole baptism in Acts, but I think, again, that's been done to death.
Yeah.
People always argue with that.
I think that's not needed. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not needed. I think people can just go to other channels to learn about that. But again, I hope this has been fun for you guys. It's
Yeah,
been
definitely.
fun. Oh yeah.
I'm actually quite grateful you took it from a beauty standpoint. Like,
Oh,
it
yeah.
also just so happens that the two of us are musicians. It matters. It matters to us. Yeah.
It matters. And I think, like I said, I dodged the whole Greek, the
Yeah.
whole intellectual,
Yeah.
super like exegetical. I make it about how much we're missing out with the whole story, with the whole image, with the whole beauty. If we kind of focus on there, right? And again, that's kind of an attempt for me as someone who is more scholarly, more this, more that. I'm avoiding that route.
Mhm.
And maybe some people who are like, oh, he didn't tackle the Greek word for, or he didn't tackle, and I think, hey,
No problem. You do it.
That's right. You do
Yeah.
it. There's
Yeah.
enough online. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's kind of the end of it. And I hope there's no parting words from you guys. If not, I'll be signing off.
No.
None.
All right.
Other than Marco, did you die and like come back to life with like no hair?
No, yeah,
Yeah.
I just got a haircut. It's hot season here, and I sweat. Hey man, I kid you not.
Yeah.
Getting your haircut,
Yeah.
your sweat actually stops becoming annoying. It starts becoming
Like really cooling.
Refreshing.
like refreshing
Yeah.
because
The wind
you
just
sweat,
blows.
but then wind blows on it, and you have personal air conditioning. TMI, but that's the benefit of it. But anyway, yeah. Hope y'all had a good one, and this is Kingdom Cast signing off.